Welcome to Conversations with Chuck Bennington. I'm Chuck Bennington, and I don't know it all, and I don't pretend to, but I do know that I love my son, and I want him to have a better, faster, smoother journey through the trials and tribulations of life than I had myself. So here's my documented journey, stories, lessons, and experiences that are really for you, buddy. I love you.
And welcome back to another episode of the Conversations with Chuck podcast. And today, another special guest joined by Tim, the owner of Keystone CrossFit and longtime friend of Mr. Chuck Bennington. How are you, gentlemen?
Very well.
Wonderful.
That's good.
Excited.
Good chance having Tim on today to chat about, the origins of how you guys met, your relationship, and Tim, I guess, as I said to you in our email, it's about how you've seen Chuck evolve, as a human and a dad, and as he's moved through stages of life that you've known him, and just riffing on about life stuff and reflections, and no hard and fast rules here.
Cool.
Yeah, I am curious to explore dad life as a boy dad versus a girl dad. Don't get to talk to a lot of dads about that. Moms are quick to unload, but dads are like, I don't know, man, they're kids, they're wild.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to you, Lisa, many, many years ago, Tim and I, we had actually probably a single conversation that led to maybe like 2 or 3 other conversations. We were going to do our own podcast. We ideated this doing a seminar. I think we were in Pennsylvania. It had to be. It was somewhere drivable for you. It was either like Massachusetts or Pennsylvania, and we were in a shitty hotel with a couple shitty bottles of wine. And
oh yeah, no, it was
That's when
probably
the best ideas happen.
Yeah, I can't remember. We didn't do Virginia Beach together. That was a real bad hotel. I think that was Sean. But
yeah, this is probably like 2018, something around there, and we decided we were going to do the Two Drunk Coaches podcast.
Drunk Coaches, yep.
Just to be super honest about all the stuff in coaching and affiliate ownership that nobody talks about, and I still don't think it's a bad idea. But
it's not a bad idea.
Winner.
It definitely needs to be like anonymous. We couldn't really be honest if it wasn't anonymous.
I can blur you out, and we'll just
right?
talk in vague terms,
change
and I'll facilitate it. And
well, we've ruined it now.
I'll be the sober driver.
Well, so like piece one, it couldn't be Two Drunk Coaches because congratulations to you, sir. You were beyond 2 years sober.
Yes,
well done.
Yes, 2 plus something. I actually wish I knew like the day that I decided to stop, but who knows what that was. I stopped so many times before actually stopping that it's all kind of blurred together. So
well, I actually recorded a really good episode about a month ago with a guy that was basically former Lisa head coach before she had sold her gym, and we had kind of talked on like just alcohol and like really navigating alcohol in adult life, and especially in the role of a father. And something that he had like taken some perspective on is he's trying to minimize his drinking. He doesn't desire to go like totally sober, but he was drinking a whole bunch of non-alcoholic beers. And he's like, oh, but my daughter doesn't know they're non-alcoholic beers. Son of a bitch.
Yeah, that's funny.
I don't know, man. I'd be super curious to have you riff on that, because I know that for better or worse, that was one of the areas that like you and I had spent a lot of time and bonding, and I've got some incredible memories of like wines and beers with you.
Oh yeah,
my alcohol intake has plummeted over the last few years, but man, I'd be curious about kind of like catch me up to speed on that area of your life.
So, I think it was number one, I have a super like addictive personality. Like I don't do moderation of anything, it's everything. Like I'm an all or nothing guy. Like if I have a fast car, I'm like pushing it as hard as I can. If I do a WOD, it's all or nothing. Like there's very little moderation. I don't pace myself well. If I buy a bottle of wine or a box of wine, I'm like, I have to finish this. Like, there's no like I watched I watched TV shows and things like that where there's like people with wine cellars. I'm like, how do they fill that up? You know, like
it takes a lot of money, bro. That's it. You just have to have
just
more money than your bad behavior.
Right. Yeah. So that's the thing. It's like, do they just stock it all at once? And then like, you know, that's just how everything has always been. So I think a lot of, I mean, I've had some very great times drinking, you know, like but it was getting to the point where it was not aligned with my goals for one. And, with my, with like the birth of my kids, I knew right away that like I wasn't a good person to be a drinker and a dad at the same time. And it also was, I like wasn't being a very good business owner or a very good role model or a very good husband. And, you know, it all became glaringly obvious when my wife quit drinking about 6 months before me. And, you know, then I was just the asshole. Like every time I was like, well, I'm still going to have some drinks. And then it became super clear that like, you know, we were probably a very bad couple to be drunk together because it always just made me like, it always just made us fight, you know. It would start out like fun and like happy-go-lucky, like, hey, we're getting buzzed in the daytime, whatever, you know, doing yard work. And then it would just always end with like fights. So then she was like, I'm stopping this because I'm not being a great mom and I don't want this in my life anymore. And I was like, all right, well, I'm still fine with it. And then a few months later, I was like, yeah, this is terrible. Now, not only do I feel bad about drinking at all, but I'm also realizing that I'm an asshole, you know, when I'm drinking. So, you know, that was kind of like the long and the short of it. I just got to the point where I was like, you know what, like, I'm just done because I can't do a little bit, you know.
That has been
and
go for it.
We've both had this conversation where we're like, well, maybe at some point in our life we'll you know, have some again, but like right now it just doesn't matter. It's not aligned with my goals and I don't derive any real pleasure from it, or I do, but I know that afterwards it won't be, you know, something that I cared about. So like Allie always says like, oh, you know, are we going to do this forever? Like, is this like our thing now? Like, can we ever go back on it? Does that make us hypocrites? Like, what if we go what if we go to like Tuscany and we're like in some villa on a hill and like we're having some homemade, you know, pasta dinner and there's some wine, or are we just like, no, you know? And to that, I'm like, no, I'm probably like, you know,
probably not.
At that point, I'd be like, that's worth it. Like, whatever.
I think like, so a couple things in that. Vanessa and I, like in deliberately minimizing our alcohol consumption, a lot of like similarities in that is not that drinking together always led to a fight, but all of our really big fights that we've ever had in our 15 years together have been predicated by some alcohol intake, for sure. Like all of our big like shit show fights have always just been like, you guys are just drunk fighting. Not even like good use stuff, just dumb shit. So that for sure rings true. What goals did you notice that like it was not congruent with, or where did you feel like it was holding you back from progressing?
Well, everything. The main, I was trying to get like a lot of my life more in line with just who I wanted to be and what I wanted to accomplish. So it just wasn't, you know, it's taking away from every aspect of that. Like I was staying up late to watch shows in order to drink, when I should have just been going to bed. And why am I watching shows? So like I should be reading. And then why am I feeling like crap in the morning? Because I slept like crap. Why can't I get my abs back? And why do I eat my diet is so, all over the place. So just everything in general was not aligned, so basically, like, when I decided that I was done drinking, I paired that with a much easier habit of like, all right, I'm also going to work on, I want to read more. So like now, instead of sitting up, staring at a television or watching some Netflix show that doesn't add anything of value to my life, I'm going to get to bed early and I'm going to read. So I set that goal, and that meant like, all right, now I'm doing two good things, and they back each other up, and then I started getting up early, and then my sleep cycle got corrected. So then my diet got better, and then my leanness came back, and all the things fell into alignment. So then I became, I feel like a better boss, a better coach, a better, entrepreneur, all that stuff, better husband, obviously better father. Those things were paramount, but
no, I think there's a lot of people that have kind of like the emotional attachment to the defensibility of alcohol. And like, I'm for sure past it. I'm like, it's a thing I enjoy, and it brings zero benefit to my life. Like, like I might have an evening that is potentially debatably, hugely subjectively, like more enjoyable or more fun or easier to like get into, a good mood. But like, I know everything that you're saying is absolutely true. And like, I don't disagree with any of it. I think it's like, it's really interesting to have conversations with people around it. Cause like, I think there's a lot of people in the CrossFit community that are of a similar age range, a similar season of life, where they're like, dude, I really want to start like being, not that we've ever taken our marriages lightly, but the idea of like excelling in a husband role, moving into having young children and being a father, where you're like, oh shit, like I am in some ways on the back half of this journey, and there's a lot of unfinished business that I have for my one shot at this human experience.
Yeah.
I need to evaluate like opportunities and opportunity costs probably a little bit differently.
For sure.
So it's interesting because like the alcohol conversation has been fairly frequent with a lot of people in the last like maybe 2 years. And maybe for a lot of people, like COVID was the pressure test that put them into so much easy alcohol consumption that they didn't have the convenience of like adult life behind them to buffer them from their own like worst tendencies and habits. And everybody's like, man, I've been very comfortable with way more day drinking that is probably good for me. Now I have the ability to think about this on a continuum. And it's like, further in this direction, what is the cost of that relative to all the things that really matter for me? But it's wild to hear how many people that are like, nah, man, it doesn't impact me negatively at all. I'm like, that's literally not fucking possible.
Yeah,
like,
not at all.
Realize that is like your hubris and your ego and your arrogance and your emotion. Like talking, it's like, it makes you feel good because it's poison.
Yeah. Interesting.
But well, cool. Catch me up.
I can't seem to get my I can't seem to drop this weight that that I'm just holding on to. Well, let's talk about the weekends and cortisol and visceral fat, and yada 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 yada. And
everybody like trying to reduce their caffeine consumption. Be like, well, if you weren't like pseudo hungover 4 to 5 days a week and running on like midnight to 6 a.m. of broken sleep, that like you probably wouldn't eat as much coffee. Here we are.
But wait, I wanted to throw this out there because I think we're talking like you were talking about just like being kind of in the middle, like sort of middle age, and you got one shot at this. Like, I think like a lot of. It's funny, like my time in the military, it gave me like a very unique perspective where I've always felt very, very much aware of like our mortality, I guess. And, but at the same time, also like just fell into this habit of drinking to like, I need this to unwind, or, and it snowballed, from the Marine Corps, but, what became, I think one of the things that kind of started this pendulum swinging back in the other direction was coaching for CrossFit gymnastics, because you and I did more courses together than I did with some of the other leads. But I just felt like your whole approach to the course, I mean, and CrossFit itself is like this microcosm of like of life, you know, and that's what's so amazing about it. The whole, exactly. And so I think the gymnastics course is like sort of this microcosm of like, or we try to make it like, hey, this is also like bigger picture, how you should attack all of CrossFit, and bigger picture than that, how you should address life. Like, and so I've always been like, you kind of, I think got this ball rolling in me where I started thinking more about this pursuit of like virtuous movement, and then, you know, on a level higher above that, like a pursuit of a more virtuous life, you know? And we always talked in the seminar about like, you know, CrossFit, like being a coach of CrossFit is like, we are making better human beings, like people that are a better addition to civilization rather than like a draw on civilization, you know, a drag. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's just kind of like, I think, which is awesome. Like, I think our time spent together really like changed maybe the path that I was on. So even though we were drinking heavily together and having a blast, the time where we were coaching kind of made me look at everything, like CrossFit in general, coaching in general, like the seriousness that I take changing people's lives, and like the value of that. It just took it to a whole nother level. So I think it was just bound to happen where it was like drinking just no longer was.
That's where it becomes like incongruent. And like that's a real piece to like sit and meditate on, right? Is like, we have opportunities to be net positives or net negatives. And when we have things in our life that can exist as net positives or net negatives, like, you have to think about where that ripples to. You have to think about like where that grows geometrically or exponentially.
Yep.
Well, dude, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. That means more to me than you probably know. So talk to me about being a dad of girls. What is that like? 'Cause having a boy is fucking bonkers. And I would be interested if you had a boy first, if you guys would have had a second.
So who knows? I don't know. It's so like, I have a very, I mean, maybe this is not so weird, but I told Allie from the beginning when she was like, what do you want, a boy or a girl? I was like, I want a girl. I want girls. You know, I don't know. Like
that's interesting.
Right. Yeah. So like, I'm like this, here I am, like, you know, I grew up fighting. I joined the Marine Corps. Like I shoot, like I do all this stuff that's like, you know, manly, whatever you want to call it. Like, and then, but I think
mustache, got a grunt style shirt on,
like,
still got a high and tight.
I think it's funny. Like, I think that like, I'm so on the extreme. Here's the kind of like, what occurred to me was like, I don't know, like I can really picture myself. I could picture myself before being a dad as like this guy that would like hug and snuggle and kiss, like be really loving and like cutesy with a girl baby. But I couldn't picture me doing it with like a little boy, like toddler, you know, like I just couldn't picture it. So I was like, maybe, I don't know, like, I guess if like, but that's the thing. Like, I don't know. So like, if we have another one and that one's a boy, maybe I'll figure it all out. Like, everybody that I know that has boys is exactly like that with their boy, you know, but for me, I just couldn't picture it in my head. So I was like, no, I think I want a little girl. Like I'm still going to take her shooting and teach her how to fight and like teach her how to smash.
I mean, because they're life skills. Like, it's important to step away and be like, those aren't boy or girl things. Like, those are life skills. being able to like manage yourself physically is a life skill. Being able to like do basic shit on the thing that gets you transportation all around your whole life, like that's a life skill.
Yep.
It's
yeah. So no, it's I think it's I don't know. Like it would be really cool to have like one of each and see like exactly how they're different. But
we're actively trying for number 2, and we're hoping for a girl,
cool.
and that would be cool. I will report back if that is the case, but we'll probably get twin boys or some fucking hilarious universe.
Exactly.
Well, it's totally up to you, Chuck, how that happens. So
right. Yeah. So what is you're a very intentional, deliberate human, and I think that you're a deep thinker, and I think you put a lot of like time and effort into your thoughts and your actions. And so what are some things that are big life lessons that you and Allie are trying to pass along, or you at least know like these are a handful of pillars of life that we really want to make sure that they have a good exposure to, whether that's skills or just like frameworks, beliefs, areas of life, and to set context, like for us, fitness and nutrition are like cornerstone pieces of your life. I don't give a shit what you do with fitness, but like you need to do something with fitness. I don't give a shit what you do with your nutrition, but like it needs to be more than just like I eat whatever passes me and whatevs.
Sure.
So like what are some things you and Allie are setting as life cornerstones?
So like I don't know that we've gotten into that yet. Because they are so young, but like we're both Christians, so our focus right now is on teaching them the ideas of just being a good human being, like so I guess basically like integrity is going to be high up there, and that's integrity in everything. Doing the right thing because it's the right thing. Not because someone's watching you, not because there's a consequence. So it's character building, and character building takes practice. It's like a muscle. It needs to be something that is worked on over time. So like that's like the uniqueness of the human condition. Like, so let me throw this out there for everybody listening. If you are at all interested in this stuff and you want to, improve your life or better your life, I've been listening to this online like college course. It's a dialogue. It's from Hillsdale College. And they're like the beacon of liberty right now in the country, like as far as colleges and universities go. So the college course is on Nicomachean Ethics, which is Aristotle's, most major book. And it's basically a step-by-step way to pursue what is good, and it starts off with going over character building and what is a virtuous life, and what is the good, what is beautiful, and then how to spend your life getting there, and you need wisdom to do that. You need experience. And then that, correlates back to our role as parents, because we're the first educators, and so like basically when you ask me like how do I view being a dad, I'm like, well, my job is to ensure that my child has a good character, and that both of them they are understand that they there's this hierarchy of good, and they should be shooting to achieve the thing that is the most good. And that applies to every single aspect of life. And if you follow the Bible and you follow Christ, you end up accomplishing the same thing. So
it's really interesting. So like, that's a thing that you and I haven't spoken on, but I have pursued more. So there have been many, many times through the course of my life, through like adolescence into adulthood, that like I have pursued trying to find some deeper spiritual relationship or like deeper understanding of the mechanisms of religion. And like, I'm sure, well, maybe this is an assumption, but when you were going through basic, did you scam like the minor loophole of religion to try to participate in as many religious services as possible to get as much time out of the fucking barracks on Sunday as possible?
So I grew up Catholic, so going to church was an every Sunday thing anyway. So I wouldn't say that like I scammed it, but it was definitely like a great thing on a Sunday to be like, all right, I'm going to the religious service.
I went to church with my mom in my early childhood, and then we drifted away from it. And it wasn't like a huge piece of my life, you know, like I would have identified as Christian, but just in the sense of like, yeah, you're a white fucking guy in America. Congratulations. Like, just, you know, that's like the easy assumed answer. But then in basic, I was like, you know what, this is a great opportunity to like get a little bit more downtime on Sunday, but actually like explore some of this stuff. So I went to every service that I could go to for as many Sundays as I could get away with it before they're like, you're just kind of scamming the whole day. Like, you're not Buddhist and Wiccan and Catholic and Christian. It's like, you know, I was really like, you know, I was exploring really, you know, more than anything. And it's been a thing I've continued to explore. And then you realize all of these universal threads that run through all of these religions of the world. And then, you know, I think most people are vaguely familiar with that, but they use it as a criticism of religion, where they're like, it's all just a bunch of bullshit because they all have the same stories with different characters. And you're like, you're missing it. Like, that's the point. Yes. What is the most basic piece of technology for humans to communicate thoughts, ideas, perspectives, and really what you said, wisdom? It's story. Story is like the first, last, and only line of defense against our own brains and emotions. And so, like, yeah, it's a collection of stories and allegories to help guide you towards these scaffolding principles about what makes a better life, about what makes a better society. Of course, there's like perversions. Of course, there's perspectives. But like, if you can really step away and you're like, the reason that these things have existed through all of human history, regardless of geographical separation, are because of the wisdom that is contained of like, hey, if you want your society to thrive, these are a few of the basic conditions that are going to have to be met, regardless of who you are, where you are, when you are, or like what you choose to or aspire to do in the world. Like, it doesn't matter if you want to be the best CrossFit gym owner, the best husband, the best father. Like, it is the pursuit of a virtuous life to varying degrees, just applied to like whatever context matters. And like, that's been a really cool like reframe for me. And I've listening to a lot of like Jordan Peterson over the last couple of years, and I've kind of digested most of his stuff. And like, that was a cool launch pad into finding a different way to really look at specifically Christianity and, you know, a lot of Western religious commonality. And the big tipping point thing for me was, it seems so silly now. Maybe it's not silly, but God is a literary device for something that is otherwise ineffable or inexplainable. It's like, you know, we don't have a word that we can assign to this universal sense because we know it is for sure way beyond our fucking comprehension. Like, we'll call it God. And the different religions have their different naming mechanisms for a thing that is really more universal. And then, like, you know, you can spring from there into like hierarchies of like the Father, the Son, you know, a lot of the masculine, feminine, the paternal. Like, there's the other pieces that kind of cover a lot of the ground in between. But that's been an area of life that like I've leaned further into in the last probably 6 months more specifically. And it's the first time that Vanessa and I have had like any regularity in going to church, but it's been through this very different lens of seeking universal truth, I guess, is probably like a good way to phrase it. Yeah, I don't have like a big follow up on that. That's just kind of my rant. Just no, yeah.
So I hear you. It's funny that like the way you kind of phrased the beginning of that, like in Aristotle's Ethics, like the beginning of it talks about how like we are, it's inevitable that we go from, the like being a parent to becoming a family, and then kind of families start clustering together, and then you have a tribe or a village, and then those villages kind of cluster together, and it's all for like security and like common goals of like eating and producing things and all, and then inevitably like there will be politics, and not politics in the sense that we think about them, but like the these tribes becoming cities, and then because of that, because of human nature, we need to create laws, and the laws are to ensure that like these inalienable rights that exist in human nature are protected, because there are good folks and bad folks, and so it's really very interesting to think of it that way. And I guess that kind of like all goes back to this idea of like we need the same kind of way that religion has grown. It's an answer to that. It's an answer to that problem,
What's a
or to the
framework?
human condition, the human condition of like when we think about the fact that we have these like mortal bodies, but we have to assume that we have this soul that continues on in some way, shape, or form. If you kind of sit around contemplating and suss it all out, it only makes sense, So then you have to answer that riddle somehow. Like, hey, why the hell, is this the way that we are? Like it's just kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah, I've really come to like appreciate it and enjoy it a lot more. And I think that that's something that I wish, maybe it is, and I just haven't been exposed to it, but I wish that there was a greater encouragement of like thoughtful engagement in religion. I wish that like more of those conversations were curated more regularly, because like, I've gone through a lot of periods and seasons of my life and trying to find like just a better relationship with all of it. Because I think that most people get a sense that there's something there, even if it seems like vastly incongruent with like their personality, their life, their own life choices, where they're like, that book has a lot of stuff that doesn't seem like I fit and belong there. And you're like, well, are you looking for the areas that stand out, or like you looking for the congruence? Because I would venture to guess if you look for the congruence, you'd be like, oh, overwhelmingly this does speak to me, which is why like there is the sense that there's something there. But so much of it has not been in my search for like the truth, whatever the fuck that means, but just like really trying to wrap my head around and figure out what it means and where I fit in. I haven't gotten to engage in a lot of really thoughtful discussion about it, which is unfortunate, because I've definitely pursued it with a lot of people. Like a lot of people who were religious figures in different churches that have, existed in my time passing through fucking living in a bajillion places in my life. But it's
I think unfortunately it's like sorry.
Well, I'll let you get to that, but I think it's an interesting thought of like, it's an interesting series of mental exercises to come to a greater understanding of the human condition and of like the universe at large. And I think that the ancient historical classical philosophers and thinkers, I think that might be like the last time a lot of it was really contextualized well, until this kind of present day resurgence that's happened in really just like the last handful of years, where a lot of people have stepped away from the politics of religion. They've stepped away from the incentivized structures of like power, control, monetary, benefit. And they're just like, hey, let's really look at like why this has existed since before humans were even really actually able to write. Yeah. There's probably something to it. So yeah.
Might be important. I was going to say it's unfortunate that, it's one of those things where like, I think people are very defensive about their beliefs, obviously. So it's like, you know, you don't talk politics at like the Thanksgiving dinner table because everyone's going to end up in like a big fight. And it's the same thing with diet. It's the same thing with like religion and just everything. Just like I mean, shit, like we could get into so much. How much? So we got 2 or 3 hours?
We can do as many of these as you want, bro. We could still have a whole podcast together.
We can't. There's no dialogue anymore. You know, I think there's, you know, we're just nobody is willing to listen to the other side. Not nobody, but you know what I mean. Largely, it's there's a lot of polarization, and then there's just all you can do is defend yourself when nobody's willing to kind of like meet in the middle and talk about anything. As an adult, you're just like, whatever, I'll fight you, I guess.
Well, and like, what if we eliminate the ability to fight and instead, like, you must reason? And I think that I know this to be true, and it was kind of like a big piece of the impetus for the podcast. And it's also something that I had picked up from Jordan Peterson. That it's one of those things that you hear, and you're like, I'm today years old when something super fucking obvious like actually makes sense for the first time. And he's like, language and dialogue between one human and another is how we understand our own thoughts and ideas. You don't even understand how you feel about your own shit until you have to speak it out loud to someone else.
Yep.
And think about what that means, like, at scale, as we extrapolate this out into, you know, families and friendships and businesses and communities and cities and fucking all of it, when you're like, none of you even know what the fuck you think about these ideas that you're willing to let other people die over. That's insane. You have no idea what the fuck even exists in your own head because you've never had to say it out loud. Crazy.
And I think, you know, I forget, someone told me this a long time ago, but like, I guess, well, I don't know where I was going to go with that. I think a lot of the education system now is just designed to teach you what to think. And it used to be more like how to think, you know. That's what like a liberal arts or like a classical education was. Like maybe, you know, K through 12th grade or whatever was like, okay, adding, subtraction, you know, nouns and pronouns and all that stuff. And then college level university stuff was really supposed to attack, like, okay, you have this foundation of knowledge, like now let's reason, you know?
Yeah. I think one of my very, very, very
like,
first,
you know, in judo, we used to say, like, when you achieve like the first black belt rank, it's like when you that's when you begin to learn. Like now it's like, okay, you learned all the stuff, like the doing, but you don't know shit about about the art.
You don't know shit about fuck.
Yeah. And so like you get your black belt, and now it's time to learn like the real deal.
Yeah. And I think like that little microcosm is like what exists in all the things, if we can step back to appreciate it. It's like, you don't have a chance to even understand anything until you've accumulated enough knowledge, experience, or both to appreciate the nuanced pieces. It's like, now that you have exposure to the breadth, you can explore the depth. And that's where the things that like really matter exist. You know, because like, think about it in the context of your own human experience and journey just as a man. It's like, until you are a husband, a father, and a business owner, like, you haven't even really gotten to the starting line of like figuring out yourself and what you want to do like with your life now that you have other things that you're a part of. Like, your sphere of influence was finally established, that like, all right, now it's time to figure it out and really like put all the lessons into practice.
Right. And but think about this too. And this will blow your mind. Like, none of that shit matters if you have character. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're talking about, how do I be a father? How do I be a business owner? How do I be a husband? How do I be this or that? The time you took up to that point developing your character, that is the guide for all decision making. So there become really no decisions. Should I do this or should I do that? It literally is just, you just have to, you just make the decision. Like if I find a wallet full of money, there's no decision there. That's a whatever example, but like such a cliche example, but like, there's no decision. Like I don't have to decide, or like my buddy's like, I don't have any buddies, by the way. You're my buddy.
You got me.
We go to a CrossFit gymnastics seminar and you're like, bro, let's go to the strip club. There's no decision. Like I don't have to sit and ponder that. No, it doesn't happen. It's like, you know what I mean? Like
it's that repeating structure. And like, I talk about this, I think about this, I discuss this a lot, is like, the micro, the macro, and the meta. Like all of these things are repeated on infinite structures. And so like, relative to the pursuit of the virtuous existence, relative to like just walking the path of character. And it's the same thing that ends up being echoed through like religion, is like, hey, you can't exist the way that the universe, the way that God needs you to, unless like you are right on the individual level, because you won't be able to show up as a spouse, you won't be able to show up as a parent, you won't be able to show up as a friend, an employer, an employee, like whatever it is that your role in this world is, until the individual is set straight, everything else that individual is a part of is detrimented. And like, so until the individual is addressed, the sum is not greater than the parts. And that's like, I think where we're really fucked at present at scale globally, is like we have excused the individual to such a large degree that the sum of individuals is no longer greater than the parts, and that is the detriment of society as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and think about so going back to like, parenthood. So if I know that like my whole life it has, or my adult life has been this pursuit of doing the right thing, I know that the reason that happened is because my mother and father instilled the importance of like this good character in me. So I know that in order for my life's been relatively easy.
It's so interesting. I know I wish I could give you a big hug, because like, it's the perspective of just like, dude, my life has been easy. It's like, but has it? Like, how many deployments did you? How many times?
So like, so I've been
owning a business and having like all your livelihood, like, and our lives are easy, dude. Like, and I really try to keep that in perspective. I'm like, it's so fucking cool to me that all of us, we are a part of an unbroken bloodline that has existed since the first single-celled organism split. Like, on some level, we track back far enough genetically that like we are an uninterrupted piece of evolution. But like successfully in our past, there has been like replication, procreation that is just like, it has existed like to today years old. And that is wild to think about.
It's wild, yeah.
Then like how often do we think about like honoring the sacrifices that our entire evolutionary chain made to get us here? We're like, traffic is so bad. My flight's delayed. Be like, motherfucker, you had ancestors that walked barefoot on frozen ground for hundreds of miles to try to find food and shelter. Shut the fuck up. Yeah. Your heart is so easy.
Yeah, I mean, like I think that's like one of the largest differences between my father and I is like he had what I would call a very hard life, because he worked so hard, and he worked up until a few years ago, and he commuted long distances, and he had a job since he was like 13, and but he doesn't have he never got the perspective that I have by going by deploying, by going into combat, by getting shot at, by seeing people die. And when you come back, back to the United States after that, it's not, I mean, some people probably aren't affected this way by it, but I basically am like, I say this every day, like, well, no, this isn't hard. Like, hey, at least you're not getting shot at. Hey, at least I'm not getting shot at.
I can't.
Oh, this,
even as frequent as we've seen each other, I have heard you say that more times than I can count on both hands. Like even if the fucking gymnastic course, and people are like, "This is hard." Be like, "Yeah, but you're not getting shot at.
You're not getting shot at. Fine." And but that's just something that sticks with me because I don't want to be a little bitch. Like I don't want to. I do everything I can in my life to not complain. If I'm putting something out there into the environment, it should make everything else better. I have people that walk in here and the first thing out of their mouth is, a 15-minute complaint session. And a lot of times I just have to walk away. I'll be like, okay, give me a minute. And I just go in another room. Or I'm like, I got to walk the dog. And then I just bounce,
Just be like, how many times did you get shot at? Then be like, well, none. Be like, okay, just checking. Anyway, back to my day.
No, I mean, I try not to throw that in people's faces because oh, I'm this badass.
No, but I think there is a degree of it, and that's part of coaching in a way that seeks to guide people to better, more virtuous versions of themselves in their own lives. That is a thing that most of us who really walk the coaching path end up encountering. Be like, dude, quit being a negative shithead. It only brings the world around you into a worse place. It benefits nobody. It doesn't benefit you. It doesn't benefit your kid, your spouse. Doesn't benefit anybody else in this gym. Just shut the fuck up. Quit bitching. Yep. Negativity is bitch.
I used to say to members at the gym, they'd come in and there were two girls once just bitching about, burpees. And I was like, dude, if that's the biggest problem you have today, you are leading a charmed life. You privileged to be able to pay the money to come in here and do a burpee to complain about. There are people who would love to do this, but they're dying or they're whatever. Dude, really? And then they're like, oh, well, what pissed you off today? And I went, that is what, and it's just like, dude, it's such a small thing to be sitting and spending 10 minutes of energy over. Seriously.
Yeah. No, man, it's privilege. Just imagine the amount of, oh man, this could I've been doing CrossFit for 15 years and running this gym for 12 and a half. And so I've probably interacted with, I don't know, 10, 20,000 people in some type of fitness conversation.
Oh yeah, dude. Between gym stuff, seminar stuff, competitions,
the amount of the lack of perspective is really, I think it's what a lot of people struggle with. I think they live in, they only have their experiences. They only have what they know at the time, and that might seem like the worst thing in the world, but they don't realize it could always be worse, and of course, it could be better. But I try to always remember that I don't know what their experiences are up till that point. And so a lot of times as coaches / business owners, we just absorb all of that into ourselves. And I try to exude it as something positive, because a lot of who we're dealing with are people who are disappointed with their current status in life. They don't like the way they look. They don't like the way they feel. They don't like their current abilities. They don't like their aches and pains. They don't like their job. They don't like their spouse, whatever the case may be, or all of those things. And then they come to us to make some kind of change. And I think the brilliance and the magic of CrossFit is that like we kind of can handle all of those things, because it's not just about doing like learning the snatch. That's
like
people,
the Glassmanism of like the solution to the world's most vexing problem, and it was really framed as like chronic obesity, but in my mind, like the world's most vexing problems. It is plural. Like, dude, you want to work on making your anxiety better? Get fitter with a group of people who care about your success. You want to work on your depression improving? Get fitter with a group of people that care about your success. Like it, it really is. I think that's what draws a lot of us to it and like keeps us so like loyal and sticky, not to the brand, not to the name, but like to how the methodology works in these little ecosystems.
Yeah,
because it does, man. It fixes more problems than you would ever suspect until you're on the other side of it. And that's why so many of us become these like unintentional evangelists. Like I haven't owned a CrossFit gym in almost 5 years. There is no vested interest in me being like, dude, you should find a CrossFit gym and join that shit. But like I tell people to do it all the time because I'm like, it's better than the alternative. The alternative of not having fitness, like true fitness, actual fucking capacity. Oof, that's a cool thing to have. To have a tribe, to have a community. Dude, unless people are a part of a church or engaged in some kind of like tighter knit hobby, there is almost a complete absence of community and tribe for the vast majority of the entire planet.
Yep.
That is bad news fucking bears. That is not how we are wired on the most foundational levels. And I think like we're seeing the detriment of that in short order within the span of like a generation and a half.
Yeah. I mean, and the problem is we're like the smartest, dumbest people in the history of the world.
Oh,
like,
we are for sure the smartest people the world has ever known.
We have jumped the shark in every aspect of, access to technology and access to like just any piece of information you could possibly have, and we don't know shit. We don't we don't think, we don't. I mean, you're right. There's no community. There's no like, and that I mean, again, not to just keep talking about like the same theme, but it's underlying to our whole entire existence. Like we start off like we're designed to be, raised by our parents. We're like one of the only mammals that like pop out of the womb and like would die like within a day.
Oh yeah, dude, I
can't even stand up for freaking 2 years. Like
last night we were watching a nature documentary and a baby elk is born, and immediately is walking. And I was like, hey dude, do you know when you started walking? You were 9 months old when you started walking.
Yeah.
We are soft, squishy, weak creatures, which is like why we got lucky that we're smart.
Yeah. You better be smart or you better be tough. Like that's
dude, if you're gonna be dumb, you better be tough. But like we are dumb and weak, like most people, and it's really sad because I think where it is off track, and it kind of brings us like full circle, and we will set up to do a follow-up on this, is like we are no longer at scale pursuing virtuosity of the individual.
No.
And dude, like that sucks. Like it's this perversion of like self-love in any sense that like you love drinking, cool man, drink. You love eating shit, cool man, eat shit. Like you love X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, that is not what is best for you or those who are in your care. And because of how we are woven together, we are all in the care of one another. Every one of my decisions and actions like either makes the world better or worse for literally every other fucking person on the planet. Like that's a big one to swallow.
Yeah. Well, think about too, like this occurred to me years ago. Like, does anybody like compose music anymore? Like, does anybody paint like oil paintings that are like, that have existed for hundreds of years and like that end up in the Louvre? Like people are there people that make like high quality wood furniture. Like those, that's the kind of thing that like used to be in like, you know, engravings on metal, carving marble statues. Like, why was that the thing 2,000 years ago or more, you know, Michelangelo and, you know, where did that go? Like nowadays, everything is just a copy of somebody else's thing. Even like all the cars have started to look the same. Like you buy the new Audi and you're like, oh, that looks like the, you know, or you see an Audi and then like a year later, like a Hyundai looks exactly like it. Like nobody's even designing different shit.
And it's all disposable. Like it's all quick turnover. What you see today is gone tomorrow. It's just,
you know, there's no, you know, my parents bought me this bedroom set as a surprise. It was like 70% off at this Amish furniture place that went out of business. And it's amazing. So there are still people making furniture. And lo and behold, they're Amish folks. What do the Amish believe in? Like their family, their community. They have faith. It's like they're not into technology. They don't have they don't use electricity, yada, yada, yada. It's like, but that furniture is going to last forever. I can hand it down to my kids. Like you don't, meanwhile, like the rest of the world is like, you know, putting together this particle board, you know, cabinet that they bought from Walmart that shipped flat and then falls apart in a year, you know?
Yep.
It's like,
virtuosity.
We're not in a good place, like right now
redundancy is built into so many things. You know, there's automatic redundancies built in. Like your phone will automatically start to die at 2 years. You know, because they know that there's new coming. It's designed to keep that cycle of people. If we keep people engaged with getting more, wanting more, acquiring more, then they won't have time to think and cause issues with asking questions about why things are the way they are. It's just distractions that fill us.
Yep.
Well,
on that note,
I very much so have enjoyed this. This is good. This is good for my soul. I miss you.
Yeah.
This was timed perfectly because I really like have come to this like culmination of like, I don't know, myself, like in what I want to pursue. Like,
I think you and I are in a very like similar like season of life and like a really interesting shared like evolution of the individual and like our own perspectives of ourselves. And at least like I'll probably look up in like, you know, 2 or 3 years and be like, you fucking egotistical, arrogant idiot. You thought that like you had thought about so much shit. You thought your brain was working well. You still don't know. I still keep that mindset, but dude, this is awesome. I would love to do another one of these.
Yeah, sure, man.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, gentlemen. It's been a real thrill to sit and listen to you guys ponder on the mysteries of life and your relationships.
I would like to set up the next one. I'd be interested in talking about business because like that is a thing we haven't caught up on views of business, fitness industry, funnels, bro.
Yeah.
Funnels. I'm the product. Do you remember that conversation?
Oh, dude, yeah.
That was a drunken wife.
It's all so simple. All right, dude.
All right, gentlemen.
11 o'clock that I am 2 minutes behind on.
All right. Well, we will see you guys soon.
Thank you, dudes. This made my day very, very good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to another conversation with Chuck Bennington. Hope it was enjoyable for you. Hope there was some value and some benefit in it. Maybe even had a laugh or two. Even though these are primarily for me and Liam, we sure love to help a friend in need because it's a friend indeed. So if there was some piece of it that was good, please feel free to share it with somebody else and pay it forward. If you think what we're doing is rad and you want to support it, please just like, subscribe, share, tell a friend. Appreciate you, dudes.